We are really proud of the hard work we put into making sure Canadians in the midst of a second wave will continue to get the same amount of support. The Liberals had planned to cut it. We fought back and maintained the $2,000 a month. We were able to get assurances to bring in place paid sick leave, which will cover millions of Canadians instead of what was initially proposed, which was thousands of Canadians. We fought hard in the first place that no worker should have to make the impossible choice. We're really proud that now for Canadians, there will be the first of its kind in the history of our country.
So CERB is running out and its replacement is currently working its way through Parliament as MPs debate the merits of the new Canada Recovery Benefit. But with a second wave declared in Canada's biggest provinces, is help coming fast enough? And is the government taking the right approach? Let's bring in the MPs. From the government side, the Liberals' Parliamentary Secretary for Indigenous Services, Pam Damoff, joins us from Oakville. Conservative employment critic Peter Kent joins us from Thornhill, Ontario. And for the NDP, their employment critic Daniel Blaikie joins us from Ottawa. Hello to the three of you. Nice to see you. Happy Monday. Let me start with you, Pam. Why did it take the NDP in a pandemic to have you include a broader paid sick leave in your bill and the same $2,000 a month for those out of work due to COVID? Why did the NDP have to sort of nudge you to do that?
Well, I think it shows what the government has been doing all along, is working and listening with the other parties to incorporate their ideas. This has been something that we've been doing since day one, and it's resulted in what Canadians want to see is collaboration between the parties. And I give full credit to Minister Qualtrough for having the flexibility to listen and to adapt and be able to move forward so that we can get the best possible programs for Canadians.
Peter Kent, will your party vote for it?
Well, certainly the Conservative Party, the official opposition, is not going to vote against a bill that extends benefits to sick people and caregivers, or potentially cut off benefits to 2 million previous CERB recipients. But we think this is a very poorly conceived bill without the committee study, without the inter-party discussion, without the input of experts, and at the 11th hour cave-in by the Liberals to accept the NDP's proposal, which is not by itself necessarily a bad proposal, but the wording of the amendment that we debated today, and which will be law in just 2 days because of closure in Parliament, has a great many flaws. I was talking to a Labour lawyer today, a noted Ontario and British Columbia Labour lawyer, Lior Samfiru, who says that this is a great encroachment into the jurisdiction of the provinces. In Ontario, for example, and most other provinces, there are already 3 job-protected sick days provided for in law. They are not paid days. So if the feds pay for a 10-day leave, 10 days away from the office on the justification, and again, very vague justifications in the wording of this act, they could very well not have job security. They could very well, under provincial law, lose their jobs. So they would receive 2 weeks' pay from the federal government and lose their jobs. This should have been done in consultation with the provinces. The provinces, when they get down to reading the wording of this particular amendment, the 2 weeks paid sick leave, are going to have great concerns and I'm sure great complaints and criticisms and opposition.
Well, seemingly the 2-week paid leave would be paid by the federal purse, not the provincial one, but that's another argument for another day. Daniel Blaikie, I want to ask you, if this is a done deal, is there no surprises the NDP will vote for it?
Yes, I mean, this is, in terms of how the legislation was presented this afternoon, this is the form that we intend to support. It's not that it's exactly everything that we wanted, but we knew when Canadians elected a minority parliament back in the fall that would mean everybody putting some water in their wine and trying to hammer out compromises that allow the country to move forward. And so, once the pandemic arrived, that's been central to our work, which is trying to get trying to push a reluctant government to have a better pandemic response that's far more sensitive to the needs of ordinary people and not just the kind of wealthy and connected folks in the back rooms, whether they're the bankers or corporate CEOs. And I think we've had a lot of success in that regard. We would have had a very different pandemic response, I believe, if we had had a majority Liberal government than what we have had. And I think what we've had has been better for people. But there's certainly more that we could do. I mean, we should have 10 paid sick days as a matter of right for every Canadian worker across the country, pandemic or not. And this is a far cry from that, but it's the best we could do with a government that didn't really want to reach out over the summer to hammer out these details and instead chose a strategy to put the pressure on by leaving everything to the last minute. That was a choice the government made, and I don't think it was the best way to move forward, but we're trying to deal the hand or play the hand we've been dealt.
Yeah, it's moving in fast forward motion. But Pam, I want to ask you this. Quebec is set to announce it's moving 2 cities into red alert. Ontario numbers are not far behind. We know the provinces are asking Ottawa for an increase in health transfers. Now, my question is this the right time to say yes?
Well, we are giving the provinces $19 billion through the Canada Safe Restart program that we worked on with them.
No, but these are health transfers, Pam Demoff.
Well,
this
but
is health
part of
transfers.
that is for
It's not
health.
the $19 billion. Yes, but they need a lot more than that, and we all saw the figures.
Right, but they want it for testing. It is part of it is for health, as is the $2 billion for the schools. I mean, we're working with the provinces. The testing is critical right now, right? And we are giving money, and I keep hearing the opposition.
Sorry, Pam Demoff, you know it's not the $19 billion. They're asking for the health transfers to be increased.
Right.
So
but they want it so that they can increase
but my question
testing.
is, no, they wanted increased testing, and they also want the health transfers to be increased. I mean, we've been listening to the provincial premiers, for a few years. But my question is, is now a good time to increase those health transfers, seeing that this is not going away?
Well, you know what? We need to be talking to the provinces, but I mean, let's be honest. They want to increase the health transfers because they're having stresses on their system right now when it comes to COVID, right? So when you talk about, and you keep going back to it, but when you talk about things like testing, the provinces need to be picking up the pace, and we're seeing those numbers, and we're still in a public health crisis. This is a crisis. So we're going to do whatever we need to do to have Canadians' backs through this. So regardless of what it is, and the Prime Minister has said this numerous times, we're going to make sure it's done properly. We're going to make sure that it's done without political interference when it comes to testing. We are continuing to work with the provinces and with the other parties to make sure we've got Canadians' backs.
All right. Peter Kett, I don't have a lot of time, but your party, I'm curious about this. Your party said no to the throne speech. You're not going to vote for it, only minutes after the Governor General had stopped talking. So no possible negotiations. But, your deputy leader was saying there was nothing for oil and gas sector, nothing about agriculture, all true. So why not try to negotiate?
Nothing about national unity.
Nothing about national unity. So why not try to negotiate something while, you're dealing with a minority government? You could have gotten something for agriculture, for gas, oil, something. Why just say no, a blanket no?
Well, the vote on the speech from the throne is a vote on the content of that speech, and it was filled with reheated promises, some of them very old, some of them more recent, and a number of ridiculous proposals. The most ridiculous probably was the wealth tax proposal, which was condemned by a former Liberal Deputy Prime Minister, John Manley, who said it was the dumbest thing in the throne speech. This was not a speech that deserves support or recognition, and it's one that we will quite proudly vote against. The NDP's support has been bought by the last-minute addition of the two paid work sick weeks. But I think that this is actually going to cause more problems. It's going to be more costly than beneficial, and it's going to raise a new federal-provincial dispute over who has jurisdiction for employee benefits in Canada.
I'm sure we're going to be talking about this for another couple of days. Pam Damoff, Peter Kent, and Daniel Blakey, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.